Now, numerous African countries have seen rapid technological advancement in recent years, as noted with internet and tech-related solutions across sub-Saharan Africa. It's therefore no surprise that the rally against blockchain technology is also gaining momentum. Irfan Pardesi, YPO member and co-founder of ACM Gold, joins us now. Irfan, definitely a pleasure speaking to you. Now, we've discussed this back and forth, so getting an angle around this is pretty standard. Most startups and established companies are looking to disrupt the industry by undercutting traditional companies, traditional telcos, but we don't know to what extent the infrastructure has been laid solidly enough for them to not feel like we're intruding into their particular industries. Guide us through your expertise on the same.
So, George, I don't think the existing industries would be disrupted with such simpler models that are currently out in the market. The essence of blockchain is a trustless environment, and we all understand that. However, it cannot be applied to everything because not everywhere do you have a problem with having a centralized authority. I mean, I'll give you an example. You don't mind if Vodacom or MTN or one of these guys is your telco. It's okay. So there's very limited industries which could have an immediate impact, because we're still in early days. However, it's interesting to see that, a trustless environment essentially allows the new economy that we are seeing in the world, which is based on reputation rather than on credit. Blockchain is the perfect thing available to us for that. Because it's a trustless environment and it's a public ledger, reputation economics, is going to become on steroids, when it comes down to these things. And East Africa is prime for that because, I mean, Kenya being one of the best examples, every single conversation that, I have at Facebook or Google or anywhere where I'm sitting, everybody's always talking about how Kenya embraced, M-Pesa, embraced, storing value and transferring value on an SMS. So it's a forward-thinking nation, it's a forward-thinking place, and we can pretty much use this trustless environment and kind of jump ahead. We have that opportunity right now in Southern Africa and in East Africa to kind of just leapfrog, a lot of things, a lot of environments, a lot of industries that wouldn't have been able to do if we had an existing infrastructure which was good. I mean, Sierra Leone is pretty much pulling off an election in blockchain, whereas US would have never in a million years be able to do that. So we are sitting at very exciting times when Africa can really utilize blockchain in some very interesting ways.
Right, let's talk about banks, for example, as we get into the financial space. We've just been talking about some results in Kenya, where we saw the banks drop interest income from loans and advances, so we know what banks are suffering with and the interest rate caps that has happened. Now we are seeing them trying to tell people within the market or the general public that they need to adopt more internet-enabled solutions. We're seeing a lot of apps coming up, and now we have blockchain saying that we're bringing more financial services to the end user. All these three things seem really detached, Irfan.
So when people take a big hit on the fact that banks would get disrupted or we're going to have a new type of currency, I think we're too far away from that. I mean, currency itself is a very strong word. And on the other side, in the blockchain environment, we're seeing tokens, which is a very gamified word. So I think banks, yes, they will need to adopt certain things. Yes, they should be worried, but not that worried. What I really see blockchain to be able to do in Africa is it will create a concept of fluid net worth. I mean, mostly in Africa, people's net worth is stuck in their primary residence, in their primary vehicles, etc. Because there's never been a model of either being able to completely finance that, because I mean, the debt to GDP ratios are very, very low in these parts of the world. So what blockchain could essentially do is provide banks with an ability of being able to store as a custodian different assets on their books and allow the flexibility and the public ledgerness and the fluidity of blockchain to allow essentially people to start utilizing their network. So anything that they've stored, I mean, people have stored gold in India and Pakistan in big sums, but they can't really use that. And if there was a centralized custodian, which was trustworthy, who could potentially use that as an asset and start, offering products which could create fluidity in their exchange and make a store of value into a transactional asset, I think banks will still play a major part in that. So banks are just getting scared of the new tech. I think they should be perhaps looking at opportunities outside of what they've existingly been doing. They shouldn't be trying to defend their core. They can defend for sure, but there's so many opportunities which are outside the current angle of the bank. And in South Africa, we see Bank Zero coming out, and I can see there's a lot of things like these things would happen on it.
Right, Irfan, but let's move now on to what ACM is doing. You had some interesting news, particularly at the beginning of the year, where you said that you were entering the cryptocurrency space or the crypto world, and we have our own reservations about most of the offerings that are happening in Africa because they seem to speak to either geographical areas, not to the larger context that was initially meant for either cryptocurrencies or digital coins. Guide us through what has been your progress so far.
So I think you've hit the nail on the head. We've been a very established forex broker over the last 10 years in Africa, and at some point around 2 years ago, we took a conscious decision to not do retail forex anymore. And the reason behind that was very similar to what you're referring to right now, what's happening in the crypto space. We always wanted foreign exchange in Africa to become, something that they had inherently understood because it's impacted Africans' lives more than anybody else's life. I mean, people in Europe and the US don't know euro dollar rates, but in Africa, everybody would know the dollar rate. So, but we at some point we started realizing that it became a speculative product more than what the initial intention was. And I think unfortunately, blockchain is kind of, or cryptocurrencies for that matter, are kind of going down the same route. Where it was supposed to be the savior, that gets the unbanked to banking, but it seems like it's just a speculative product. I don't believe cryptocurrencies, as it is right now, will break through into Africa as the next currency. I do, however, believe the blockchain technology with some custodianship and bringing back the stability that assets bring and that what Africa has could really be the potential. So ACM, we've also had a change of heart and a change of direction. We are now trying to get digital assetization. We are seeing that there is a massive opportunity in Africa where investments are required for startups in this part of the world. However, the regulatory environment doesn't really allow it for the money to flow in and flow out fairly quickly. So we are looking at different kind of currencies which would essentially allow people from outside of Africa to trade and buy into African startups, African technology companies, freelancers, invest in the local stuff using the specific coins which would be linked with equity, with straight equity. We're not trying to cut corners here or create utility tokens just because that's the hip word right now. This is just a way to expose the African startup world or the African markets to the international world. And on the second step, essentially what would happen was even the management of the stocks that we would have, because people are scared about the transparency that African countries have. When that kind of share register goes onto the blockchain, we feel that there'll be massive opportunities for foreign direct investment to come into Africa. Because Africa doesn't have that issue of a bad reputation in terms of other things like terrorism or war zone or anything. We've just been regarded as a dark continent, unfortunately, and now people are seeing this opportunity, and they're realizing that blockchain, just like mobile was. I mean, South Africa is the country that started prepaid mobile in the world. So you're seeing that Africa is kind of becoming and have that gravitational pull, especially Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa in the blockchain environment.